Hi, this is Christy Marks. I'm the creator of the Gem and the Holograms animation series, and you're listening to Genretainment.
You're listening to Genretainment. And here are your hosts, Marks and Julie.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Genretainment. This is your co-host Marks, joined as always with
co-host Julie. Genretainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of books, film, TV, and tabletop role-playing games. We give you interviews with writers, game designers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations.
On this episode, we have the return of comic book writer Dirk Manning. He wrote the book Writer On, A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics, and has made lots of great comic books over the years, like his supernatural noir, Tales of Mr. Rhee, and genre-bending horror anthology Nightmare World. It's been roughly 10 years, a decade or so,
Yikes.
since he was on the show.
I feel so old.
So we're long overdue a reunion. Not only do we talk about his new Kickstarter, Love Stories About Death, we also talk about his work with SourcePoint Press and his many other books.
Like The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. Dirk also shares tips on Kickstarter and working in comic books. It's a fun discussion about comic books, crowdfunding, and the horror genre.
Since we're talking about Kickstarters, we would be remiss not to mention ours, Fairy Tales, Folklore, and Fables Reimagined. It's our new anthology series that puts twists on genres and archetypes. At the time of this episode premiering, we'll only have a few days left, probably like 8 or 9 days. We have a link to our Kickstarter and, of course, Dirk's Kickstarter in the show notes.
We should also mention that we have all sorts of cool stuff happening on our Cabot Crossing YouTube channel. You can hear these episodes there, in addition to our traditional podcast platforms like Spotify, plus many other fun things like genre play and more. Check it out, and be sure to subscribe if you would like to be notified of new videos.
We also have a new Patreon, which is another excellent way to support our work and get bonus content. A link to that's also in the show description.
Now let's get to our interview with comic book creator Dirk Manning.
Hi, Dirk. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been, let's call it 10 years.
I think so,
It's been a minute. Yeah.
It's been a minute. Yeah. It's been a minute or a decade. But as I was saying before we came on the air, I always most sincerely appreciate both of you and the opportunity to talk to you. And I'm glad that we could finally make this connection here, make this happen. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I know I can't believe it's been that long. Whew. Well,
I know.
Yeah, I know. I was looking back and I'm like, wow, can that be? But, a friend of mine once said, and I always remember this, time ain't nothing between two friends. Between
Right.
or true friends is what he said, but between two
Yeah.
friends. But time ain't nothing between true friends. And well, that's what I'm going to chalk this up to. So that's why it just seems like it's just been yesterday since we last spoke, although a lot of things have happened since then and now. So.
yeah, a lot of stuff's happened. When we originally chatted with you, we chatted with you about Writer On, A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics.
Uh-huh.
I think we talked about Nightmare World also.
Yes.
But as you said, you've done a lot since then. But let's start off with your newest project. That's what kind of caught my attention a little bit because we have a Kickstarter that just launched. And right about then, your Kickstarter launched. And so let's talk about your Kickstarter, which is called Love Stories About Death, which I believe it's a deluxe hardcover graphic novel, kind of an ultimate edition of past work. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Love Stories About Death is a kind of a reprint of an out-of-print graphic novel I did years ago with a different publisher that was originally called Love Stories to Die For, covered by Nia Ruffino, and the original edition had 5 full-length stories. And you mentioned Nightmare World a moment ago. These were stories that were all genre-hopping, standalone horror stories that I originally intended for Nightmare World, but Nightmare World was an 8-page format. And these were stories that needed to be a little bit bigger. So what I did was I wrote these as 22-page full-length one-shot stories and then initially kind of put them aside, right? And said, okay, someday I'll have a bunch of these and I'll put them together and I'll put them in a separate kind of like a Nightmare World Presents style collection. And that's what we did. But Love Stories to Die For, the original version, is long out of print. And also, it's the only graphic novel of mine, my only creator-owned graphic novel that I was never able to offer in a hardcover edition. The publisher I was with
Mm.
at the time wanted to release this directly into the direct market, not go the Kickstarter route, which is where I usually tend to like offer deluxe versions of the books with hardcover and things like that.
Mhm.
So part of this campaign and giving it the original name I kind of christened it with originally back in the day, Love Stories About Death, was to offer this out of print graphic novel is a limited edition hardcover, gold leather bound cover, gold gilded pages, or sorry, gold. I keep saying gold. I think by the way, I didn't want to do it. Red wraparound cover, leather bound, red
Mhm.
gilded pages, red sewn in bookmark, and along with that, also offer two additional stories that were written for Love Stories About Death, but never fully illustrated. So this kind of definitive, like you said, ultimate edition with the red leather bound cover and things like that. What we're going to be doing is this contains the 7 stories originally written for the series. It's got a new afterword, kind of about the history of the series, including how the book appeared on Chicago Fire for NBC, and originally it started. A lot of people don't know as like a web comic for a different publisher and all that. And
Yeah.
like you said, this is just a nice definitive edition of the work. And these are 7 heartfelt horror stories that will tug at your heartstrings and then, of course, rip them right out of your chest. So,
And now we noticed you called it a quick starter campaign. So what's the strategy behind that and how is it going?
yeah. Um, Given that this is a, you know, 2/3 or so, I haven't done the exact math. I'm not very good at math. I'm a writer. But given that this is a more or less a reprint, about 2/3 of the material has been previously published, give or take. But I'm adding 50 new pages of content. I did not want to do a full blown traditional Dirk Manning style campaign, which I'm very fortunate in the fact that oftentimes when I do these Kickstarters, we end up unlocking sometimes, you know, 10 plus stretch goals, right?
Mhm.
Over 30
Right.
days. And again, I'm very fortunate for that. I'm extremely grateful. I'm not humble bragging, nor am I complaining. It's just the nature of the beast. So, what I want to do with this one, with a quick starter, is I said, look, I'm going to run a 3-week campaign that gives everybody a chance to kind of get themselves situated that they can jump into this, buy in if they want to. And what I said was, I'm going to have one super stretch goal. And at that one super stretch goal, the hardcover edition of the book will upgrade to the red leather bound cover, the red gilded pages, the red sewn in bookmark, a book plate, and an exclusive book plate signed by me, so all the books come signed. Rather than piece out those stretch goals for the quick starter, because I was only running it for about 3 weeks, I said, I'm just going to offer it all day at the first stretch goal. We'll have one big stretch goal. If we hit it by the end of the campaign, huzzah, huzzah, we'll be good to go. And I'm saying this with complete sincerity. My thought was we would get to that stretch goal towards the end of the campaign, right? Towards the end of
Right.
the quick starter.
Mhm.
We hit that stretch goal within 36 hours.
Nice.
And
Wow, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. But there's no but. I mean, it was amazing. But I'm like, well, okay. So now what are we going to do for the other 20 days? You know? Um, so I've kind of retracted what I originally was going to do and make that the only stretch goal because I mean I unlocked everything at once. So we did add in 2 more stretch goals. One that illustrator Joshua Ross, who illustrated the book plate's going to sign it now as well, so it'll be double signed. And then if we get to the next one, hopefully the last one, the $13,000 stretch goal, we will turn the book plate into a larger art print. I announced those 2 stretch goals, and within 6 hours of announcing them, we unlocked the first of the 2. So now,
Wow.
yeah. So like, guys, I'm kind of running out of steam here because like I kind of front loaded it with the idea of it being a quick starter, which is a shorter campaign, one big goal. So it's going great. But it's also been very much a learning experience in regards to
Right. They all are, aren't they?
yeah, true words have never been spoken there, my friend. Um, but like I said, I I underestimated how excited people would be about the red leather cover and all the tricks I'm putting into this, and so it's going very well. But it's definitely been a learning experience in regards to how excited people are about this book, which
Yeah,
people can check out at lovestoriesaboutdeath.com. Will take you right to the Quickstarter.
Nice.
I like that title.
Thank you.
Why don't you tease, like, in case someone's never read any of your work before? Why don't you tease like a synopsis of one of the stories, maybe?
Oh gosh. There's 7 stories in the book, just so people get kinda like the scope of it. There's like a science fiction story. There's a story about a girl and, her overzealous guardian angel. There's a cryptid romance. There's a vampires versus Vikings. There's a professional wrestling story. There's a zombie story. The one I'll tease out a little more is called I Come From the Water. I've long felt this is one of the best short stories I've ever written, or best, I guess, one shots I've ever written. And it's about a guy who is a pirate, and he's been raised on a pirate ship his whole life. He's a young man now, and his 20s, and a mermaid has started following the pirate ship, and he believes that mermaid can be his salvation of finally getting out of this pirate life that he hates so much.
Huh. That sounds interesting.
That's one of them, and a lot of people think of a mermaid and they think of like Ariel or something like that. This mermaid's a little more, let's say, feral.
Yeah, I
You
feel
know,
like with the title, of
I
your
wasn't
overall
expecting
collection.
Ariel singing on a rock, considering it's called
no,
Love
that's not
Stories
at
About
all
Death.
what this mermaid is. If you go to lovestoriesaboutdeath.com and you scroll on the page, you'll see thumbnails of the different stories, and you get a glimpse of a little more bestial, shall we say. But all of the stories deal with the theme of the intersection of love and death in a different way, right? There's romantic love, there's love of family, there's love of your friend. There's so um, yeah. I'm really excited for people to see that one. This is a story I've been sitting on for, gosh, almost 20 years, and it's
Wow.
always been to me like, God, I just can't wait for people to see this story. And now
Yeah.
we're to the point that, due to the success of the campaign, people get to see that one, illustrated by Chris Marchman, and they'll also get to see Nothing Else Matters, the other one I wrote at the time. This is the only Nothing Else Matters is the only one I've gone back and I reworked the script a little bit for Austin McKinley, and it's a cryptid romance story. It's
Mhm.
about a guy who he starts a very serious relationship with someone that's not quite human, and what that looks like for both of them.
Hmm.
So you get like romantic stuff, you get creepy stuff, you get science fiction stuff, you get a little bit of everything. So
Yeah, I think I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit because it seems to flow really well. So,
Yeah,
like you
that's what I was
said,
thinking.
you seem to like to genre hop, and like
Which
your
we do
collection
too.
story.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't think it was even a twinkle in our eye back then. But since then, I've started a publishing company. We do fiction and stuff, and we're doing anthologies, and we do a lot of genre mishmashing.
I
So
love that. Where can people find your Kickstarter? What's the name of yours so people can look it up?
it's called Fairy Tales
Folklore and fables.
Reimagined. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Sorry,
It took two of us to say that.
I'm very big on cross promotion. So thank you. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I appreciate it. So I definitely like the idea of your genre hopping and stuff. Or I've liked it in your other work. So I kind of curious why do you like to genre hop? And is there any theme or tone in your overall work that you feel that does carry over from story to story?
I I I'm a huge fan of horror, and
Mhm.
and it's funny because I think we're living in a golden age of horror right now, where people very much can recognize all the things that you can do under the genre of horror. Horror can be funny, horror can be scary, horror can be romantic, right? All these different things.
Mhm.
And I it's funny we talk about genre hopping because certainly like when you read stuff like Nightmare World or things like that, or even like the collection of my work at this point, I'm still a horror guy at heart, but you'll also start to see, like you said, kind of like this weaving in and out of genres, but yet it all still kind of lives under that horror umbrella. I just want to like to show all the different stuff you can do under the umbrella of horror.
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
With love stories about death, like I said, these are all stories that are about the intersection of love and death, and how, I think it was Ernest Hemingway that said, was it every love story or every story ends in death, and anyone that tells you differently is lying. I probably mangled that quote a little bit, but that was the idea. Ultimately, with love stories about death, that's what that's about. It's like that, you know. I know this person's name is nuclear to some people, but in the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling wrote a great line about how terrible it is to love something that death can touch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we'll just separate the art from the artist and leave it at that for now. But um, so with love stories about death, that's really the overarching theme there. Is these are very much love stories, but there's the strong horror element to all of them. Big picture, I think one of the things I like to write about, and I'm cribbing this from Franz Kafka, is the nakedness of man when faced with the absurd.
Hmm.
What do you do when reality takes a left turn on you?
Mhm.
And what does that look like? Whether you look at a book I wrote like Hope, which is about a mom who moonlights as a superhero, and when her family gets in a car accident, she has to reveal her secret identity to protect them. And what happens? She finds out that you can't just punch your way out of everything. That's not how this works, right? Or Tales of Mystery, as I've gone on record many times saying, this is one of my favorite series I write. It's about a demon hunter who lives in a world where everyone knows the demons are real, but everyone thinks they're gone. So his alienation comes not from the fact that I know of a world no one else knows about.
Oh, yeah.
No, everyone knows they're real, but everyone thinks they're gone, and they want him to shut the F up about it.
They're tired of hearing of it.
You're right,
They
right.
want to
They're like,
move
no,
on.
they're gone. It's like, no, they're gone. And if you don't believe they're gone, maybe it's because you can't adjust. And if
Hmm.
you can't adjust, maybe you need to be detained somewhere. Maybe you need to be locked up. Maybe you have a problem that we can help you with by isolating you. And it almost
Mhm.
became, even though I started Tales Mystery in 2006, when we faced the COVID pandemic, it was like, no, this mass denial of a very real threat was supposed to be fiction. It was supposed to be almost parody, you know. So just that theme of, again, I'll go back to Frank.
Fighting conformity at all costs.
Yeah, yeah, whether it be fighting conformity or the absurdity of conformity sometimes, or things like that, or yeah, that's something I like to write about, because I think ultimately horror speaks to the human condition, in my opinion, better than almost any other genre.
Mhm.
Because ultimately, what it really all boils down to is, what would you do if?
Yeah.
Right? We talk
Yeah.
about the nakedness of man when faced with the absurd. We talk about the intersection of love and death. Ultimately, it comes down to really one simple question. I think most almost anything I write really ultimately boils down to, what would you do if dot dot dot, and then you insert scenario.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Interesting. Now, when it comes to publishing, you primarily publish with SourcePoint Press, is that correct? And you're the special project manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, can you tell us a little bit more about SourcePoint and what kind of work that you do?
Yeah, yeah. SourcePoint Press is a publisher out of Saginaw, Michigan. And they, I think, like a lot of publishers, will tell you, they were really rising, 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 and their stock was rising up until about 2020. You know, and then this
Wonder
thing
what could have happened. I don't know.
yeah, March 2020, global pandemic, and that really took the wind out of their sails, like a lot of small publishers. But they're one of the only small publishers who did not declare bankruptcy, or publishers of their size. But they did have to really step back and recalibrate. And SourcePoint Press publishes primarily horror, pulp, science fiction, genre
Mm,
stories.
Mhm.
My role with them as special projects manager is something I kind of evolved into on accident. I've worked with SourcePoint Press for years, publishing my creator-owned work. However, over the years, I started to work with clients like Twisted, the rap rock band out of Detroit, or Tony Schiavone, one of the announcers on All Elite Wrestling. And then I worked with Arn Anderson, the legendary wrestler.
Mhm.
And upcoming this October, we're doing a graphic novel adaptation of the lost pre-code horror classic London After Midnight with Cheney Entertainment. The movie originally featured, Lon Chaney.
Uh-huh.
When you're working with that type of external talent, a lot more goes into it than I'm going to write this script and deliver the art and deliver the story, right? So really, I kind of grew into and inadvertently created a position where I do a lot of work with a lot of the external talent that we do books with. Um, there have been some other projects. We did a project with another rap artist, Blaze did Homie. I project managed that book, for example. I didn't
Hmm.
write that one myself, but really, it allow it. I kind of serve as a liaison with our external talent that we work with on some of these graphic novel projects, which is separate from me then also serving as just a writer that publishes my books with them.
Awesome.
Interesting.
Um,
I knew it sounded like a very exclusive kind of job title,
Yeah,
impressive job title.
I just kind of fell into it, and again, we've had some projects that have been, near misses and things like that that I was negotiating, things that happened. We have one coming up I can't announce till January 1st. It's going to blow the doors off the place, So yeah, it was just like, ultimately it allows our external talent of that nature to have a contact with a company that they can come to me if they have any questions, comments, concerns. They'll handle, royalties or questions or whatever, and give them the TLC that they need to navigate through the process.
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. The pro wrestling project. I know you're a big fan of pro wrestling, right?
Yes,
So
sir. Yeah, what a world, to working with the Lon Chaney estate, and then working with wrestlers and working with musicians. And we haven't. I can't announce it till January 1st, but we have a graphic novel fully illustrated already and about half colored with a New York Times #1 best-selling personality in horror.
nice.
Right, but it's just like, this is my 21st year in the game, and I look at all the creator-owned stuff I've gotten to do, like Love Stories About Death, like Nightmare World, like Tales of Mystery, like Hope, like Homestead, the Native American Werewolf Western, like Cthulhu Jr. But then also getting to pepper my resume and pepper my bibliography, I guess is even a better word, with things like working with some of those other talents like Twisted, like Tony Schiavone, like Harn Anderson,
Yeah.
and Ron Chaney. It's just it's pretty remarkable. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat, friend.
It's neato.
Yeah, I have to say I never got into I'm going off script here. I've never gotten into professional wrestling much, but there was one season of this really cool TV show called Heels.
Yes.
And
Yep. Yep.
did you watch that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't seen all of it, but I am familiar
Oh,
with it.
it's so
Steve
good. It
Amell's
kind
in
of
it.
made me rethink about professional wrestling.
Well,
Maybe
yeah, and I'll tell you, we're in a golden age of professional wrestling right now. WWE especially is absolutely just firing on all cylinders. AEW offers obviously very alternative programming in regards to pro wrestling, and pro wrestling is storytelling, right? At its core, good pro wrestling is good storytelling. And I know what I saw of Heels. I really liked that it embraced that. It embraced that aspect of it. There's a really good
hmm
documentary too that some friends of mine were involved with on Netflix. That was about a developmental wrestling promotion as well down in Southern Ohio, the Southern Ohio area. That's well worth checking out as well if you get a chance.
cool.
Cool.
Maybe you'll turn me over into a fan.
Yeah, I was disappointed. It only got 2 seasons and it got canceled. Oh, well.
Oh, was it two? Yeah.
Yeah, it's two.
I was so disappointed.
Well, I'll tell you, it's called Wrestlers, and it's on Netflix, and it's more of a reality style show, but it
Mhm.
it, it, it could flip you.
Hmm,
Yeah.
I'll take a look.
Well, check it out.
So, you're very experienced with crowdfunding, and I was curious if you'd share some tips for folks out there who might want to try out crowdfunding. Um, some tips you've learned, some things you've learned to not maybe mistakes you made or almost made that somebody should
Yeah.
watch out for, or any other tips.
I think the biggest one, and it's going to sound like I'm being funny, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this because I mean this with the utmost sincerity and seriousness. In order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd.
Hmm.
And the second thing is you have to be able to activate your crowd,
Yeah.
you know, and really that's the foundational element of it. I've done some work with other creators who I know and admire who've never really done anything in the crowdfunding space, and working with them with it. And I tell them, your first Kickstarter, you'll get your friends and family will usually jump in. Um,
Right.
they'll help you out, kind of like the novelty of it, right? And then your social media, about 10% of the people that follow you on social media will jump in. The question becomes then, what are you going to do the second time,
Mhm.
right? Now it's
Yeah.
not a novelty anymore. Now, so like, how do you activate those people? How do you market to them? How do you message your product? And how do you pay it forward? I think one of the reasons I've had as much success as I've had with crowdfunding, much to the bane of all my publishers' existence, I am not a profit motivated person. My end goal on a Kickstarter is the book. I want to pay the people I need to pay that collaborated with me on it, and then I want the book in my hand. I will make my money off the book because I believe the book is good, and I tour pretty relentlessly on the road, although I'm trying to slow down a little bit. I'm getting older. But to me, that's what it's about. And I say that because, like I just talked about on the Love Stories About Death, which people can check out at lovestoriesaboutdeath.com on Kickstarter. The first stretch goal, we did a red leather bound cover with red gilded pages, a red ribbon sewn in bookmark, and a signed book plate. Now, anything you add to your book takes
Right.
away from your profit per unit.
Mhm.
I don't care. I offer free I offer free US shipping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
that's no
Yeah.
that's the thing.
That's nothing to sneeze at right
That's
there.
nothing
No.
to sneeze at. Now, do I factor that in when I determine the cost of the books I'm offering? Of course. However, to me, a thing that I try to do is I try to pay it forward to the people supporting it. So not only in order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd. The other thing that you have to be able to do is ask yourself, what are you doing to make this about more than yourself?
Mhm.
Right? Again, with Love Stories About Death, a perfect example. A lot of people had the original version of this book. So how am I going to get people to consider reinvesting in this book? I'm going to give them 50 new pages of content. I'm going to give them a red leather bound cover, red gilded pages, a red ribbon bookmark, a signed book plate. Now it's a double signed book plate. We might even upscale it. We might embiggen it to an art print, right? But those are the things I'm doing to pay it forward to people. There used to be a joke, about the big box of Dirk, right? You back at Kickstarter by Dirk Manning, you get a box full of stuff, you know. But to me, it's about how can you provide, in financial terms, a return on investment, but how can you make it worth it to other people? Because again, make no mistake, ultimately, I want Love Stories About Death to exist in its definitive form. I talked about that a minute ago. I want people to see I come from the water. I want people to see Nothing Else Matters. I want that red leather bound edition of this book. But me
Right.
wanting it is not justification for people buying it. Now, to be
Mhm.
fair, I've been doing this 21 years. There's people that know my work, and like reading it. And they know that if I'm putting out a book, there's a certain level of quality that comes with a Dirk Manning book, a Dirk Manning project. But to me, that's still not enough. How are you making it worth someone to put down their money and their faith and say, I will pay you today for a hamburger tomorrow?
Mhm.
Or in this case, 3 months from now.
Yeah, there is a bit of a delay.
Right. I mean, because to print these books, you gotta get your orders in, stuff like that. So the other thing I would say, along with in order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd, is how can you pay it forward to the people you're asking to support you? How can you make it a win-win? And that's the other thing. I think a lot of people that struggle with Kickstarters because they look at it like, well, my book's good, so it will automatically make money. I wish that was the case. I've seen when I worked for a music journalist for 10 years, whatever it was. I saw a lot of bad bands make a lot of big money, and I saw a lot of really good bands go nowhere. I
Right.
Mhm.
wish talent. I wish talent was enough. Wouldn't that be great? Just put your
Yeah.
10,000 hours in, become a virtuoso of what you're doing, and you're good to go.
Mhm.
It ain't like that. There's so many other pieces. So you got to pay it forward to other people and make it worth it to them to invest in this with you.
Yep, I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
So you did mention one story I was curious about that I hadn't seen because I love Cthulhu Mythos stuff. Your
Yeah.
work has that layered in different stories. I saw you publish The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. What is
I just
that?
keep picturing little baby Cthulhu.
You are picturing the exact right thing. Uh,
Well, then it
here's
was a
the
great title.
oh, thank you. Here's the thing with the Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends. I do a lot of shows. I do a lot of conventions. I do a lot of signings, and oftentimes I'm to an age now where people are bringing their kids, or even random strangers. That people that like horror are bringing their kids to the table, and their kids look around on the table, and I'm like, no, 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 Johnny, don't pick up Tales of Mystery. You'll wet the bed forever. No, 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 no. And I got tired of saying no, 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 no. That was part of it. The other thing, and so that was a piece of it, right? There's that purely like something for the kids to look at, and maybe they can buy for their kids. But also, I love horror, and I wanted to be able to create something that was an all ages friendly gateway to horror. And when I say all ages, that's not code for just kids. If you read The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends, you as an adult will laugh.
Right.
I mean, I guarantee you, it is. I'm just going to be transparent. We've known each other a long time. Every time I'm packing up, like at a show or something, or like getting ready to like pack for a convention, if I pick up The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and flip through it, I swear to you, there's not a page I don't look at and start laughing.
Right.
The other
I
piece, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I can't tell you how many times I've stood there in a store and just read children's books and gotten something out of it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The good ones are good for adults too.
Well, yeah, it's like Looney Tunes, right? It's like you laugh at it as a kid, and then like as an adult, you watch and you laugh at other stuff, and like, wow, I didn't catch that. And,
Yeah.
and the other piece of the big kudos go to Scoot McMahon, who's the co-creator on that book with me, the artist on the book. He's a genius. He's a comedic genius. We we actually plotted the whole miniseries in one like 2.5 hour car ride, uh,
Wow.
or give or take. We were driving to Cincinnati, Ohio, for a Comic Con, and we plotted the whole book in the car, right?
Oh, wow.
And but it just flowed because he's sharp, he's funny, and I've always tried to infuse humor in my books because although I am a horror guy, the line between horror and humor I think is a lot thinner than a lot of people give it credit for. But it's a fun book and it's got some really good messages in there, and it's something that legitimately kids can read it and enjoy it, adults can read it and enjoy it and laugh, and adults can read it to their children and not want to gouge their eyeballs out of their head reading the same stupid childlike book. See spot, jump, jump spot, jump. No. And it's funny when Scoot and I were working on it, he would say, some of this might be a little over the head of some of the kids. And I said, that's fine because this isn't just for kids. This is for everybody,
Right.
all ages. In fact, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Friends is getting a reprint as a digest-sized book now. We
Oh,
originally
nice.
published it as a Kickstarter exclusive hardcover. We did plushies. We had Cthulhu Jr. plushies.
Oh,
Got
how
it. Got to do that.
cute.
Yeah, yeah, good, good. If you can find one, get one because they're very very difficult to find now. We've talked about doing like new ones, maybe like a Beanie Baby version or something. We'll see.
Oh, I would like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would be out of control. Like the little digest sized Cthulhu Junior reprint coming out in October, and then the little Beanie Babies. But
I still love stuffed animals, so
oh, hey, yeah, Cthulhu Junior, he's great to snuggle with, and he's got like the drool, the doll, the plushie has got like the drool on his shirt. It's so great. Yeah. So if you go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or bookstores, you can order the new digest size new printing of the Adventures of Cthulhu Junior and Friends. But yeah, I wanted something for younger kids to get so they can experience horror in a way that, again, it's not going to traumatize them. But it's a horror book. I mean, it's like Lovecraft mythos stuff, and there's little in jokes in there about it, without the racism, right? Without the xenophobia.
Yeah.
But I am,
that's a good thing to leave
It's
out.
another one where you got to keep the artist and the art.
yeah,
So,
you got to
Right.
the art is a little bit, But I love the Cthulhu mythos stuff. I love the idea of it. Obviously, Cthulhu appears in multiple things I've done, and that Lovecraftian approach to horror is one that's so good. There's so many good things in it, I should
mhm.
say. And yeah, so this is just a book that's accessible to anyone that wants to get into to horror, and it just fills my heart when people get that book on Amazon or they get it from me at a convention or whatever, and they talk about how like their kids won't stop reading it,
Yeah.
and that just promoting literacy, promoting a love of comics, promoting a love of horror. That's that's the name of the game. That's a legacy you want to have more than anything. Is,
Yeah.
is create books that people read and reread.
Yeah. And you're raising a new generation of fans.
Yes.
Even better, right? You know, I
Started
mean,
young.
I'll tell you, it's funny. We talked about how, we first spoke about 10 years ago, give or take.
Mhm.
I was at a convention last year, and a guy happens to walk by my table, and he just kind of like stops in his tracks. And he kind of like looks at my table for a second, and he's looking at the Nightmare World, the complete collection, which is a new trade paperback collection of the whole Nightmare World series in one cover, and one book under one cover. And he looks at it, and he looks up at me, and he looks at the book, and he looks at me and goes, "Are you Dirk Manning?" And I get that a lot because people oftentimes don't know what I look like if you don't see me on social media. They only see the picture they got tapping the scarf. And I
Mhm.
said, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, he goes, "You wrote Nightmare World." He goes, "You wrote this book." Like, "Yeah." And he looks at his kid. He picks up the book and he holds it in front of his kid and he goes, "This is the comic I used to read online when I was your age."
Oh my
Oh, wow.
gosh.
And I'm like, "No, that's impossible." But then I'm like, "Wait a minute. Nightmare World debuted 21 years ago. Oh my
Yeah.
God."
Wow.
And immediately, like, the gray temples came in. It was like Tim Allen the Santa Claus, like when he turned into Santa. It was like my temples instantly grayed in that moment. I'm like, I'm to that point where I have my readers have kids that were the age that they were when they started reading my work.
Wow.
I know I'm so old. I don't even like saying that. Oh, I just got another gray hair came in. I just heard it.
I know the feeling. I can't believe how much time's gone by since we've done some of our stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's been like 10 years since I acted, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And it feels like yesterday. And you're like, wait a minute. Just remember
Yeah.
the 80s were 20 years ago. That's all you got to remember.
Well, 30,
Keep going.
40, 40.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
The horror, the horror.
That's a horror story right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Soon the
So,
wrinkles will come in.
Uh-huh.
all
The
right.
smile. There'll be less if you smile, right?
Well, if you smile, all the wrinkles will be in the right places.
Well, right. That's what I tell myself. Right, right. Yeah. It's
Then
like,
you'll just look like a happy person.
right. I always try to
Yeah.
smile that way. I try to smile often. I tell myself because that way, as my wrinkles come in, they'll be like good wrinkles. I won't have like the
Yeah.
frown
Yeah.
line wrinkles.
Yeah. So we've spoken about a lot of your projects. Is there any other project you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah. Homestead, Native American werewolf western book, just went up for pre-order on Amazon. We did
I
a
love everything you just said right there.
Oh, yeah. I would encourage you to go to Amazon and check out Homestead by Dirk Manning and Les Linden Gardner. We just did a really successful Kickstarter campaign for the hardcover edition of the book. The book's at the printers right now. Raul Blackhawk was our Lakota creative consultant on the book. It's a Native American werewolf Western. And I'm excited and scared because I think it may become a lot of people's new favorite thing I've written, which is awesome. But I also have so much cool stuff coming out that I'm excited about that that I
Right.
want. But Homestead, we did $23,000, I think, on Kickstarter on that book.
Nice.
Um,
Wow.
Lessons cover alone, I mean, probably made up for half of that money. It's just incredible book. We mentioned the Cthulhu Junior Digest-sized reprint coming out in October. People can order that on Amazon right now as well. People can check out lovestoriesAboutDeath.com to jump in on the quick starter as we talk right now. We're over $10,000 in pledges on that. That's the only way to get the red leather bound edition of the book with all the other extras. In October, like I said, I'm working with Cheney Entertainment. We are doing the definitive graphic novel adaptation of the long lost horror classic London After Midnight.
I didn't catch the title. What after midnight?
London After Midnight.
Oh, London after midnight. Sorry.
Yeah. And no, you're fine. And it's funny because I always tell people if you know what London After Midnight is, even though you may not know, I tell all different people this. If you Google it, you'll see this iconic image from horror. It's like the guy with like the top hat and the fangs and this creepy face and big bug eyes and stuff. Like, oh, that image. Well, the
Yeah.
film got lost in a fire in 1929. Has never been seen since.
Aw.
We took the script and we've adapted it with Cheney Entertainment to the definitive graphic novel version of the book.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh my gosh. It just, as a horror fan, it's just like, that's when they got my mom excited. when I told her about this.
Yeah.
She's like, "What? We used to watch all those old movies together." I'm like, "Yeah, we didn't watch this one. It disappeared in 1929, but we're bringing it back."
I love old
Um,
movies.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I wasn't familiar. I just looked it up, and yeah, I do. It's a very iconic image.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, people don't necessarily know that even if you don't know the name, you know the image when you see it.
Mhm.
The man
Right.
in the beaver hat, they call it. But
You're keeping busy.
Sounds like
yeah,
it.
I'm fortunate. I'm really, really fortunate that I continue to get to be able to do this. And I would say, going old school, like going back to our roots, Nightmare World: The Complete Collection. Source Point Press put out for the first time ever, all 4 volumes of Nightmare World in one big softcover omnibus trade paperback, along with all the bonus material from the previously Kickstarter exclusive Nightmare Nomicon bonus comic we did. All the story content from that book is in this. Really nice collection. I'm super proud of it. We just did the Tales of Mystery Act 1 Omnibus. We put out Tales of Mystery Volume 5. Volume 6 of that series comes out next year. I'll just tell people, go on Amazon, go to look up Dirk Manning, and pick up something that looks good.
I have one more question to ask you. I was wanted to
Sure,
pick your
sure.
brain on. Obviously, we originally started. We talked to you many, many years ago about all your tips and advice for comic book writers. I'm curious, in the last 10 years, if someone wanted to break into indie comics now, is there
Mhm.
anything is there one like big thing that's changed in the market for someone who tries to break in, or is just trying to make indie comics at all nowadays?
That's a great question. Yeah, talk about burying the lead. Last year, I put out the second edition of Right or Wrong, A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. So I took the original book that we talked about back in the day.
Mhm.
Originally, I was just going to kind of go through and update some of the technology references and stuff like that. As is my way, I added about 33% new content to the book. So I tell people, if you really want to get into comics, Right or Wrong, WRITE, Writer's Guide to Creating Comics, the second edition is now available on Amazon wherever books are sold. It's still the same structure of the original book, but I just kind of updated a lot of like the technology and added some advice and insight.
Mhm.
But I'll say the one thing, when I came up, having an online presence was a little bit of a novelty.
Right.
And publishing Nightmare World online made it unique because I had a website and I posted 2 pages a week every Thursday. And we didn't have social media. Nowadays, I think some people still want to operate under the model of Field of Dreams. If I post it, they will come.
Right.
Mhm.
You can't do that anymore.
It's
Most
hard to get
people,
noticed. Yeah.
and it's hard to get, you're exactly right. And I'll tell you, and I'll add to that sentiment, it's hard to get noticed because everyone has 4 websites dedicated to themselves.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Everyone has a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, Plenty of Fish, whatever. I'm just kidding. An OnlyFans right now, whatever it is, right? And when people go online now, they're not so often going online to discover other things. They're going online to see who's discovering them.
Mhm.
Who liked the picture of the lasagna I had for dinner today,
The
right?
narcissism of social media.
I wish I could disagree with your sentiment, and I can't. you know so I think, but the flip side of that is you do have all these platforms to promote yourself, to build your brand, to promote your work. We also have print on demand, which is something we didn't have when I started.
Mhm.
I would say for someone looking to break in, I would say craft your brand, develop your brand, and do the thing. Make the book, let people know about it. But now it's more than ever, it's easier to make a physical copy of your book. It's easier to print online than ever. It's easier to bring attention to yourself. The irony, like we just discussed, is it's much tougher to do.
Mhm.
So ultimately, I guess it's twofold. One, do the work to make the thing. The only thing better than a perfect book is a finished book.
Right.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, you got to finish it and you got to release it. But then the other piece of that, to answer your question, is you have to find your tribe.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is find the people that like the stuff that you like and will potentially like the stuff you are putting out. The Kickstarter for Love Stories About Death at lovestoriesaboutdeath.com See, I've been doing it the whole time. I talked about it. As we talk right now, we're over $10,000 in pledges in pre-sales with 173 backers. I'm going to say that again. I'll need to emphasize the math here. 173 backers, over $10,000 in pledges.
Wow.
That's good.
You find your tribe. You find the people that like the stuff that you like, that will want to support the thing that you like. And then again, you pay it forward to them in a way that they will feel like they're winning and investing in you. And you will be winning because you get to create the thing that you'll all like. Because of social media, you can find your tribe a lot easier. But there, like you said, there's a lot of noise out there too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of noise out there. Get your ass on the road. Get out there to conventions. Learn to be able to talk about your product. Know what your product is. And don't worry about making something that everyone's going to like. It's
Find
impossible.
your niche. Yeah.
Exactly. Find your niche. Find your niche. Find whatever. Find your spot. Find your lane. And find your tribe.
Right.
And then next thing you know, 21 years later, you're still in it. Because you may not, you're not going to make those connections with everybody, but you'll have your people.
Right.
And that can be enough.
Yeah, awesome advice.
It really is.
All right. Well, it's been awesome having you back on the show after all this
Yeah.
time.
Thank you for
So,
coming back. Sorry
yeah.
it's been so long. We got to
I
do this
know.
again sooner.
We're going to
I
definitely
would
keep in
love-
touch and
Yeah.
definitely have you on sooner than 10 years from now.
No, I would very sincerely love that. Like I said, the first time we spoke, and I know it recently got re-uploaded on YouTube and stuff like that. It's like, oh, portrait of a young Dirk Manning, and I've always held a lot of sentimentality for the time that we talked when we talked. So I'm very grateful that we've had this opportunity to connect again. And I most sincerely look forward to connecting again sooner than later. So I really appreciate the time you took with me today. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. All right. Well, good luck with your Kickstarter, and thanks so very much for being back on Genretainment.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Victor Miller. I wrote Friday the 13th, and you're listening to Genretainment.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Dirk. We hope everyone will check out this Kickstarter for love stories about death. It is ending soon, so be sure to check it out right away. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know.
I think that's a wrap for today's episode.
Until next time.
Bad monkey.